Good morning, good morning, good morning. Man alive. The stories are absolutely flying in. I already knew that we were going to have a packed show today because I was sitting there in the debate last night, just bookmarking tweets, videos, all kinds of stuff, bookmarking like crazy. I knew this was going to be a fun show. We were going to be laughing a lot and a lot of white pills. And then in the last like half an hour before I was getting ready to go live, all of a sudden the stories started pouring in. Supreme Court is on one today, dropping W's for us all over the place. Let's see some W's in the chat. Clip that, chat. I don't even know what was clip that. Is that like go make a clip of the awesome thing I just said or something? I may have a YouTube show, but I find the YouTube show culture very I don't know, very odd. All right. So I've got a bunch of different things to do today. I had to break it up into different windows. I have so many tabs, I had to break them up into different windows just so I could be able to keep up with everything and try to keep my brain straight here. I also just noticed when I opened up YouTube that good friend of the show, Dave Smith, from Part of the Problem, is doing his presidential debate recap right now, and he has 10,000 people watching him live on YouTube. He has 10,000 people watching a live stream on YouTube. Dave Smith. I can't help but feel the white pills today, man. I think today is a good day. Or what is it that Taylor Brown, if he's in the chat, he'll give it to us. It's a great day to have a great day. However, before we touch on all the great stuff, there is one little bit of bad news that I just saw. Let me find a window that I can actually use here. Right here. So, our beloved Congressman, Thomas Massie, just posted this morning that his wife passed away, which seems very surprising. I didn't know there was... I haven't seen any indicator that this was expected. I don't know any details, but he just posted this. He said, "Yesterday, my high school sweetheart, the love of my life for over 35 years, the loving mother of our 4 children, the smartest, kindest woman I ever knew, my beautiful and wise queen forever, Rhonda, went to heaven. Thank you for your prayers for our family in this difficult time." So we saw this Massie a few days ago. She saw the potential in him. What a great woman. So, Lord have mercy, may her memory be eternal. He says she was valedictorian at our high school where we went to the prom together, accepted at MIT and Harvard, earned a mechanical engineering degree from MIT, and devoted her life to our family. We spent last week touring Mount Rainier with our grandson. She was the best mama ever. We love you, Rhonda. So, we are praying for the Massie family today. We're praying for Rhonda, and this actually is a good connection to one of the other things that I was going to start the show off with today. A little something wholesome. I don't remember where I saw this, but I threw it in the bookmarks a couple days ago. Someone dropped this from the talks and homilies of Elder Zosima. It says, "Young man, do not forget to pray. Each time you pray, if you do so sincerely, there will be a flash of a new feeling in it and a new thought as well, one you did not know before, which will give you fresh courage. And you will understand that prayer is education. Remember also every day and whenever you can, repeat within yourself, Lord, have mercy upon all who come before you today. For every hour and every moment, thousands of people leave their life on this earth and their souls come before the Lord. And so many of them part with the earth in isolation, unknown to anyone, in sadness and sorrow that no one will mourn for them, or even know whether they had lived or not. And so perhaps from the other end of the earth, your prayer for his repose will rise up to the Lord, though you did not know him at all, nor he you. How moving it is for his soul coming in fear before the Lord to feel at that moment that someone is praying for him too, that there is still a human being on earth who loves him. And God, too, will look upon you both with more mercy, for if even you so pitied him, how much more will he who is infinitely more merciful and loving than you are? And he will forgive him for your sake. And how much more for a beloved matriarch, mother of four, grandmother. So our prayers go up to the Lord for the Massie family today. So I know that's a sad note to start things on, but there's also happiness in this too. Shout out to the old Glory Club. Quote tweeted this guy. He says, "Nothing on God's green earth could ever be as meaningful as watching my wife hold our little baby boy." And I love this video. I've seen this video before, but this is what life's about right here. Dad getting home from work, little man in the hat and the diaper, running out to see him. There's no audio on this clip. Tosses the hat. Oh. Life is good, folks. Life is good. Even in the sadness, there's happiness. All right. Let's keep plugging through here. We got to make the most of all this. What's up, Xavier? He says, "What is up, my fellow King Pillars?" Kate says, "It's a great day for winning." It is a great day for winning. Chevron deference is dead. Blackpilling is illegal today. That is one of the stories on the docket. We will get there in just a minute. Isaac says, "I held off from listening to the debate or seeing any coverage of it so I could get your takes." Well, I don't know why I would do that, why you would do that, but I appreciate the vote of respect. It was a hell of an event. It was very, very entertaining. This is the first time I've watched corporate media in, I don't know, maybe 4 years. I might have tuned in to try to see stuff that was happening in 2020, but I haven't even watched it since then, which was kind of surreal. Like tuning in and listening to these people talk and understanding who these people are. Like, these are not impressive, intelligent, accomplished people. They're just kind of empty talking heads, taking themselves very seriously. Everyone sitting there taking each other seriously. "Oh, what do you think? What was your take on it? What are you hearing? What are your contacts telling you?" Now, the great thing about Clown World is that we get these are the people that are our vessels to communication with the actual decision makers, the actual power brokers, or at least the next level up of power brokers. And oh boy, are the power brokers worked up today. Some people might say it's an act. Some people may not. You'll have to wait for a little bit to find out exactly what my take is on that. We got 32 viewing on YouTube and only 10 likes. Please hit the like button. I didn't even welcome you guys to the show. This is the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. It's a morning show. We do it every day, Monday through Friday. It looks like it's turning into 10:30 Central Time. And it's just a variety show. We'll go through whatever YouTube videos or tweets or tweet threads or funny memes that I came across. I've got a whole bunch of funny ones that I went down a rabbit hole on Instagram, which I never do. I probably use Instagram once every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe, and then I'll use it for like 2 hours, just going down, just scrolling, and every once in a while the algorithm gets me, and literally every single video, one after the other, just has me in tears, crying. I'm usually in bed at night, trying desperately to be really quiet, and just crying, laughing. I had a whole bunch of those saved up, but we're gonna have to push those out to another show because I got too much else going on right now. All right, so this one's funny. Elon Musk has a doppelganger. We're gonna assume this video is real. It seems like it's real. I I do love that something this mundane, there is someone who would put this much effort into faking a video this mundane. Finding out the actual Elon Musk hates his Chinese doppelganger Yilong Ma makes it so much funnier because just look at how absolutely goofy this guy is. I fucking love him. No idea if any of this is true. Kind of doubt that it's true, but there's a video here of an Asian guy that looks like Elon Musk.
Yeah! I'm sorry. Morning. No!
Isn't it eerie?
Oh my God.
Even the smile?
Dog occurrence. Oh, okay. Oh, very good. Monkey. Wow!
We're like looking into some weird alternate reality where the biological matter that makes up Elon Musk was actually put in this guy somewhere else. We're seeing what an alternate reality could have looked like. This kind of weirded me out when I saw it. I wonder if Elon Musk actually knows about him. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more to it. I didn't even see this before. I bookmarked it with just the first tweet, but there's more.
Yo.
So this person says he does this all 100% earnestly too. He's genuinely Elon's biggest fan. He's not even trying to parody him. It's so funny that in his admiration, he's unintentionally the most devastating, brutal satire of Musk any of his opponents could ever come up with. Oh, this story's getting way more interesting.
Okay.
Oh, there's so much more to this than I thought.
Yo. Hi everyone, I'm Iluma. Wow, I love you.
Oh, this is a rabbit hole I'm gonna have to go down. I didn't realize there was so much more to this. There's gross. There's some dude that has made it his life goal to troll Elon Musk. No matter how this story actually bears out is true, like whether it's a guy actually named Yilong Ma who has dedicated his life to trying to get in touch with his idol doppelganger, or whether it's some Asian guy who looks like Elon Musk who is doing this authentically, or if it's some other random person who's using some super advanced deepfake technology to create these videos. Like, there is not a single way that this story could pan out that wouldn't be absolutely fascinating. I love the internet, man. It is so cool. Okay. I'm trying to blow through the short ones here so we can get to all the videos. We've talked about this guy before, Augustus Dorico. He is the founder of Rainmaker Corp. He's a startup founder associated with the whole Gundo community. He's one of the faces of Gundo, I think, and he's the founder of this company working on cloud seeding, chemtrails. He's a chemtrail maker. Look at these mullets, man. He says, "POV, you're Eric Prince, and young industrialists are about to ask about arcane foreign policy problems. We're seeing a peek at the future. Reindustrialization. Young white boys with mullets who love cocaine and energy, or cocaine. Freudian slip. They love nicotine and energy drinks. And they're listening to Eric Prince. They value Eric Prince as a foreign policy expert who they should listen to. We're seeing the coalition coming together. There's a reindustrialized summit. Actually, it just happened. There was a reindustrialized summit. And those other videos that I showed for the reindustrialization, they were like hype videos for this summit. All right. Continuing on through. So now, those were my little random ones. Let's go to... So I've got debate recap stuff. I've got Supreme Court stuff, and then we'll round it off with the Tractor Supply. So let's start with the Supreme Court stuff. We'll blow through this rather quickly because some of these are stories that are going to have to bear out over a little bit of time. But come on, share screen. You can do it. There we go. So, 3 major Supreme Court decisions that I saw. I just happened to see them drop just before I was going live. And I had all these stories lined up and was trying to figure out which ones to do and in which order. And when we get to the videos of the debate recaps, I probably have duplicate videos in there because I were like different people who tweeted their thoughts on the same video. So we're probably going to end up watching the same one a few times. Hopefully you don't mind that. I realized I was running out of time to get all this done, and so I had my Bill O'Reilly moment. I was just like, fuck it, we'll do it live. So, first decision here. Today's U.S. Supreme Court ruled in the Grants Pass case that governments can legally cite, arrest, and remove homeless people camping in public areas. This is a game changer for California and San Francisco and LA, as it now allows governments to clean up parks and beaches, etc. And I happen to know that there is a lot of will for this sort of thing in California, despite the officially stated positions and practices of the elected officials. It's kind of a complicated thing, but there is based on my experience living in California for a while, knowing a lot of the people there, there's absolutely all the people that you imagine. All the stereotypical California voters are absolutely there. But I don't think people appreciate the sheer number of people in California. There is an absolute metric shit ton of people in California. And there is a lot of political sentiment that does not vibe with the ruling class, the ruling party. But the political scene is complicated, and there's potentially major social costs for taking on certain initiatives. When I was doing the show with Jason Stapleton, we talked to a guy who was trying to do tiny homes for the homeless. And he told us the stories of what was happening to him. He had people he was caught in a drive-by shooting. Someone was trying to kill him. And he just was bogged down in regulation and meetings and applying for permits. And it became very evident to him that the homeless problem is not a problem. The homeless problem is an industry. There's an entire industry dedicated to trying to make people homeless and then receiving government money to address the homeless problem. And guys are just absolutely lining their pockets off of it. So this alone is not going to turn the tide, but it is an indicator it's a precedent, and it's an indicator of where the Supreme Court's mind is on these sorts of issues, which is going to become more and more relevant going forward. And it's a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times that that popular sentiment, is turning against the things the degeneracy that has ruled us for the last little while. Another one. Now, these again are ones that just dropped just before I went live, so I just pulled them up just to bring them to your guys' attention. We'll find out more about them as time moves forward. We'll see what the actual impacts of these things are. But Julie Kelly says, in a massive victory for January 6 political prisoners and an unprecedented defeat for the corrupt Biden, Garland, Monaco, Graves DOJ, SCOTUS has overturned the DOJ's use of 1512C2, obstruction of an official proceeding, in January 6 cases. This means the Department of Justice has unlawfully prosecuted 350-plus Americans for their participation in January 6, a flagrant abuse of the law to punish those who protested Biden's election and to criminalize political dissent. So, I have no idea how this is actually going to bear out, but on its face, this seems like a positive thing. It's undoubtedly true that a huge number, vast majority, I hesitate to say all just because I don't know the situation of every single one of them, but the vast majority of the January 6 prisoners do not deserve to be prisoners. They're the definition of political prisoners. It's I don't know, all the worst things you heard about 1950s Cuba or whatever. Like that's the condition of things with the January 6 people. So any sort of momentum shift in their favor is a white pill, and it's an opportunity for those who are actually working to try to defend them legally, pursue their appeals, get them pardoned, whatever route has to be taken. Any ammunition that they can get is a good thing. And again, this also shows the mindset, the will, the constitution of the Supreme Court, that they have not been completely compromised by the what would you say, like the roving spirit of the regime. That, I mean, they know full well the costs, the potential costs of making a ruling like this, and yet they're still ruling honestly. Duffhead, yes, we are planning on discussing the Chevron ruling. We're planning on doing it right now. Now, this is the big one. This one I know a little bit about. Supreme Court ends Chevron deference in 6-3 vote. The Supreme Court has overruled the Chevron deference doctrine, a 40-year precedent that required federal courts to defer to federal agencies' interpretations of ambiguous laws. So, Congress writes laws. The executive branch has these different agencies that are responsible for applying, and this Congress will create the agency, and then they'll give them like a mandate. They'll give them instructions on various different things, but they'll leave it intentionally ambiguous. It's open for interpretation and application or ignorance by the agencies themselves. This has formed the absolute belly of the administrative state. All the different managerial bureaucracies that essentially manage all of policy. Because now what's happened is this is the executive branch. The president becomes beholden to his own executive branch, which Congress has just punted to. And now Congress is just going to focus on getting reelected and keeping the money channels funneled to them. And each of these different agencies, EPA, FDA, Department of Education, yada, 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 all the way down, all these different agencies are free to basically, they're essentially making up their own laws because the laws are written so ambiguously that they just get to do whatever they want. And the Supreme Court was legally obligated to defer to the experts. This decision, made in a 6-3 vote along ideological lines, was authored by Chief Justice Roberts. This ruling is seen as a significant shift in power from the executive branch to the judiciary, potentially limiting the discretion of federal agencies in interpreting and enforcing regulations. The decision has been met with mixed reactions, with some viewing it as a blow to the administrative state and a win for conservative and business interests, while others see it as a major setback for regulatory agencies and a threat to the constitutional system of divided government. Now, I wanted to play a video for you guys here. Vivek says it's a seismic ruling. The people we elect to make the laws aren't the ones who actually make the laws today. It's unelected bureaucrats of the administrative state. Where's this video? Here's Larry Tribe. Chevron is now overruled. The administrative state just died. See, so key mouthpiece of the regime is telling you. The imperial judiciary joins the imperial presidency. Aha, I like the sound of this. Relegating Congress to a secondary role, except when it legislates with unrealistic specificity and foresight. Gosh, imagine having to require Congress to actually legislate with specificity and foresight. Now, it is unrealistic to expect them to legislate the sorts of things that they've been legislating. This has been part of the expansion of the federal government into every last little bit of our lives. So now if they're required to legislate with specificity and foresight, or risk deferring to the Supreme Court interpreting their ambiguous legislation for them, then they're not going to be able to legislate on nearly as many things, or they're going to have to legislate much more honestly on those things. This is setting up a very fascinating clash. Not a clash so much, but just like a building tension between the different branches, which I think is a very good thing. This also facilitates the move by an incoming Trump administration, backed by the Project 2025 and tech libertarian and commercial and investment banking sectors, who want to see deregulation. They want to see a gutting of all of these different agencies and bureaucracies. They want to be able to operate with less oversight. They are now getting even more of a pretext to fire all these people. We don't need all of you anymore. We don't need all these different consultancy groups and bureaucrats and everything to come in here. I'm saying this is like the ostensible narrative. We don't need all of you people to come in here, and we don't need your services anymore. Congress is, if we receive legislation to govern how we act, Congress is going to tell us explicitly what it is, and we don't need this little cottage industry of experts. So The libs today, man, they are fucking scrambling around. They are scrambling around and screeching. Their entire world is collapsing around them. Duffhead says, Chevron overrule is a big deal. Nearly all of ATF enforcement is based on Chevron deference. Many changes coming. Something is happening. Yeah, the nothing ever happens bros they are also scrambling. Which might tell you something. The nothing ever happens bros are having a rough day because a whole shit ton of stuff is all happening all at once. One thing that here, let me see if I can find this this video I wanted to share with you guys. It was here we go. Here's an expert. Here's an expert for you. She's going to tell you exactly what's going on. And it's funny because if I remember right when I watched this, she does actually describe it pretty accurately. Of course, she thinks it's a horrifying thing and it's the end of the world, but I'm going to speed this up so I don't have to put you guys through this for too long, but this is a funny watch.
Do you want to know what Chevron deference is? It's like it's a really big deal. If you want to know what Chevron deference is, stay tuned. Basically, if the Supreme Court rules the way I think it's going to in a case called Lower Bright Enterprises versus Rhonda, who's the head of the Department of Commerce, this is a case that talks about Chevron deference. Basically, if you have a statute, like let's say you have an EPA statute about clean water, and there's a little bit of ambiguity in the statute. This case called Chevron that the Supreme Court issued in 1984 says that you have to defer to the agency's interpretation of the statute because they are experts. They know what's best. That was all well and good when the judiciary was a bit more mixed. But now that conservatives basically control the judiciary and control the Supreme Court, they want to take the power to interpret statutes related to agency rulemaking, the administrative state, out of the hands of the executive and of Congress and just send it all to the judiciary. Let me explain why this is a big deal. Because Congress people are elected, right? The president is elected. So when they appoint agency heads, like of the EPA, of the Department of Education, Energy, whatnot, essentially those people are elected officials, right? They are appointed by elected officials. They're elected officials light. Conservatives don't like this because
they're elected officials light. They're appointed by elected officials, so they're basically elected officials. Now, you can kind of see the reasoning here. The reasoning might at least have like a little bit of surface plausibility. But then if you have any understanding of human nature, if you have any understanding of the nature of the state and managerialism as a spiritual virus, then you obviously see how preposterous it is. But I like this terminology she developed. This is very clever. You're seeing the just wonderful effect of millennial speak on actually in professional capacities now. Because she seems like she's probably some sort of a professional person of some sort, whether she's an educator or a paralegal or something like that.
Obviously, control of the White House and Congress flips back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, and they would rather have only Republicans in charge of what these agencies are supposed to do under these ambiguous statutes.
So the federal and legislative branches flip back the executive and legislative branches flip back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, but they want to have just Republicans able to control everything. But if they flip back and forth, then wouldn't this mean that Republicans would be controlling things and the Democrats would be doing it, and then Republicans, these are not intelligent people. These people have a lot of willpower to pursue their degeneracy. There's a lot of, I don't know, gut horsepower behind it, but there's not a lot of brain horsepower behind it.
That means that they can take it out of the hands of people who are elected and the people who are appointed by people who are elected and say, you know what? Only the courts are going to determine what these statutes mean. So if there's some confusion about what the Clean Water Act says, we're not going to look to the EPA to say what it means. We're going to look to the 9 justices on the court. Essentially, it is the biggest power grab by the Supreme Court since Marbury v. Madison. Marbury v. Madison is literally the first Supreme Court case, 1803, where the newly formed Supreme Court basically said, hey, Congress, you know what? When you pass laws, we're going to review them. And if they don't comport with the Constitution, we're going to strike them down. What do you think about that? Can you imagine the balls on these newly appointed judges, these newly appointed lawyers to be like, yeah, all of your power, we're going to take some of that for us.
Can you imagine the balls that these judges would have to think that they could be judges? Can you fathom that? These guys were just appointed as judges, and then they're like, hey, we're going to act as judges. Can you fathom that?
This is what they are doing. It is 2024, not 1803, but all of the power that agencies now have to determine any ambiguities in statutes that implement those agencies will have no say.
Not implement those very agencies, implicate those very agencies.
In what those statutes mean anymore. Now it's all going to be the judiciary. And look around at what's going on with the judiciary. It's absolutely it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And it's one of those cases that I feel like is flying under the radar a bit. So, I don't know. Hopefully I explained it. And if I didn't explain it very well, it's probably because I'm high. Oh my God.
Oh, I wanted you guys to get that very end. Buck Johnson says she has HR head written all over her. there's a lot of space to write that. Lots of space up there to write HR head. He said someone somewhere thinks she's smart. Honestly, this is the thing, is she's on the smarter end of the spectrum. These are the people that these guys quaver in fear about. This is the masses. This is the dumb, retarded masses. Catholic Orthodoxy on Twitter says, chill, girl, the courts are basically elected officials light since the judges are appointed and confirmed by the other two branches of government. We just want democracy managed a bit better. Bingo! Managed democracy. You've got managed democracy coming right down the pipe. Okay. So this was all the hold on. Okay, that was all the Supreme Court stuff. Now we'll really get into the fun stuff. First of all, I want to set up with a couple of things that I saw from before. Man, where's this freaking tab at? This almost doesn't make it easier having all of these different windows, the tabs split through all the windows, because then I have to try to find the right one. Okay, so these are some stuff from before the debate last night that I liked. So first of all, you got Fisher King. He says, probably one reason that Trump didn't start any new foreign wars is that he visibly likes the American people. When he goes into a fast food joint in the Rust Belt, he enjoys their company. This is not true of most national politicians. Easier to send people to death when you have contempt for them. This should be a pretty obvious observation, but I think it's actually rather profound, because not enough people really appreciate this. When they look at Trump as a political actor, they imagine him compromised by all these various different interests. You got to remember that at its base, he genuinely is proud to be an American and is proud of anything that he sees as American. He wants to cultivate the American spirit. This is what Make America Great Again was about in the first place. That was the spirit behind the slogan. If you watch the interview he does with Logan Paul, you can see he's genuinely enjoying himself. He's sitting there having a good time, chatting with these dorky meatheads about their most interesting, like, political topics. He's having fun. He's like, hey, no, let's stay here. Let's talk a little longer. He genuinely enjoys the game, which is part of the reason why that genuine, authentic spirit that he has is part of the reason why he's 3 years younger than Joe Biden, and he looks like he's 30 years younger. He looks and acts like he's 30 years younger. So, Joshua Lisek, I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm sorry, sir. Ghostwriter, he says, he quote tweeted that, and he said, there was a huge Reddit thread right after Trump won. Started with a question like, for anyone who met Trump before his politics, what was he like? And it was reply after reply as far as the eye could scroll of former wage laborers. Trump gave me the biggest tip of my life. Trump invited me for a fun limo ride on my break. Trump hung out with me while I was waiting for my grandma to pick me up because I was scared to be alone in the street after dark. Trump treated me different than all of the other rich people. It was like I was a person to him, but to everyone else I was invisible or just the help. Comments to that effect. Paraphrasing here, obviously. The actual comments were even better. And this guy says, my good friend was stuck in Iraq after Operation Desert Storm ended. They ran out of planes to get them back to the States. Trump's plane went there and brought soldiers back home. So here's the actual thread. I'm going to read through some of those here in a minute. But there was a couple replies here I wanted to highlight. This guy says, I never met Donald, but met his son Eric. Super nice guy, very tall. I also talked to several employees in one of his hotels, including one high up who knows them all. They all say the same thing. They treat their employees like family. Employees stay a long time, too. People will overlook this sort of thing, but it's really important. It's really important to have the, when you see people who will treat the staff with genuine respect, and they're kind to them, they're generous to them, that says a lot about who a person is, which means it says a lot about the orientation of their spirit. So they're not going to get everything right, but they're starting from a good place. Oh, it just got really dark in here. We might have clouds outside today. That's crazy. The Chudnator said this was from before he won. So someone used the archive.org to actually find the original thread. And it's interesting. I don't know. So this was posted in Ask Reddit, I guess, and it was deleted. Interestingly, I suppose not surprisingly, it is Reddit. So someone said, "Serious people who have met or dealt with Donald Trump in person prior to the race. What was he like?" This guy says, "My dad has met him through his job. Said he was very respectful and humble. This was on the campaign trail this last year." Now remember, this is like coming up on 10 years ago. So this was before the rise of the sort of collective participative meme format where people would just go and like just make up stories about like this guy that I'm advocating for. I'm just going to make up the most crazy stories to make him sound really good. So then all the women will love him. This is before that. So the majority of these things here are I mean, there's probably individual ones people might make up, but the majority of these are going to be basically authentic. This is a much more naive, less cynical era of the internet. This guy says, "I used to be a cable tech in New York City, and we would service Trump Tower on occasion. I got to replace the cable box in his living room and show him how to use on demand to watch a movie. Made a joke about how he hates the company I worked for, even though he's an investor. He then said thank you and had his assistant hand me a nice tip before we parted ways. Got tens on the automated survey call after I finished the job, but I'm not sure if he's the one to thank for that, since I doubt he put his number down when opening the account up." But it means that this is the type of company he's operating, is that whoever's working for him, he's like, "I know how the game works. Here you go, all tens." This guy says, "Not one of my better moments. In summer of 1996, I was working in the West Side. I took long walks for my lunch break and ended up in the Soho area. I saw Trump exiting a limo and entering a restaurant. I yelled, 'Hey, Trump!' He turned and waved, and I swear he said, 'It's Donald.' Of all the things 20-year-old me could have said." This is in another university of the Vice President of the United States. This one, very New York story. I'm eating dinner at the Silver Star Diner on 2nd Avenue in New York City. This is about 1993. At the table, this is kind of surreal thinking about 30 years ago. This is a very believable, sort of normal kind of story 30 years ago. This is the type of person Trump was. And this is the type of world that we lived in. The upper classes and the lower classes have been stretched apart, and the middle class has been disappearing. But we used to live in a society. This is about 1993. At the table next to me is comedian Jackie Mason. The diner has floor-to-ceiling windows, and outside walks by Trump, Marla Maples, Trump's parents, and a couple of other people. Trump sees Mason and walks in and heads to the table. On the way over, his father bumps into my table and knocks over my water. He apologizes, and I say it's okay. Marla actually grabs some napkins and starts cleaning it. Trump goes on about what a horror it is, clearly joking, and says he'll buy me a new water, as many as you want. I'll buy you as many new waters as you want. Then Jackie Mason goes on for 20 minutes about how cheap Trump is. He has the whole diner in stitches. Trump jokes it's not his fault because he just gave Ivana a whole lot of money. Donald takes it well, but he leaves about halfway through smiling and waving at everyone. About 13 years ago, my mom brought my brother and I to New York because one of her friends let her stay in her house. We were from Ireland, so this was a big deal and a big expense. My brother was around 5 or 6 and stressing my mom out because he was complaining and acting up for the whole week. We were walking down some random street in New York, and my brother was having a temper tantrum, and my mom was shouting at him. He had a SpongeBob SquarePants toy in his hand and threw it at her. She ducked and nearly hit Donald Trump, who was also on the street. He just laughed and said, "Oh, there goes SpongeBob." I worked as a travel agent in a boutique agency. We planned his wedding to Marla Maples, who was sweet as sugar. Donald Trump loved my boss, but as I was a teen, he treated me with civility but didn't pay me much mind. I also delivered tickets to his home a few times. His kids were always very nice. He brought my boss to work as his personal agent a few years later at Mar-a-Lago. Overall, he was a pleasant businessman conducting business. The only outstanding thing about them was how sweet Marla was. My dad actually went to high school with him. From what he's told me, they were somewhat friends, but I don't think my dad really hung out with him too much. My entire life, my dad has only ever had nice things to say about him and describes him as a prince. I'll read a couple more here. I used to work at a golf club that was eventually bought by Trump and became part of Trump National Golf Club. I quit a few years ago before he bought it, but from talking to old coworkers and members of the club, I've gathered that his son did a great job turning the golf club around, and that him and his son are both very pleasant to deal with. One person noted that the son was very well grounded and down to earth, opposite of what you'd expect from son of a billionaire. All the people I've talked to about him are rather wealthy, if that adds any perspective. And Battletit says, I saw Donald, Melania, and Rihanna sitting next to each other in box seats at a Katy Perry concert in 2010. Rihanna was wearing pasties, and that's about it. They all smiled a bunch and had a good time. When the show was over, Donald walked down the stairs, and the spotlight shone on him, and he waved to everyone. And then this is the last one. I went to school with his daughter, Tiffany, so I had a few interactions with the Donald, and all were positive. The one anecdote that I'll share is from the school plays. Tiffany was involved in the school theater program, and so was my brother, so I was usually helping out as an usher for the plays. Donald attended all the plays that were put on, despite living across the country from our school in LA. The thing that was most impressive was how he arrived to the plays. He was always late, just 1 minute late. He'd arrive and take his seat in the rear just after the house lights went down so he didn't draw any attention away from the kids. He'd slip out as quietly as he'd arrived. When he was at the school, his focus was 100% on his daughter and not himself. Despite living in a pretty solid liberal area, most people from that school admit that it's kind of hard to square our experiences with him up with the media's portrayal of him as a brash, egotistical idiot. So I thought this is really interesting. I've been struck for a long time that regardless of how I feel about his his policies, his who he chooses to spend time with, what he chooses to promote, whatever, that what I keep remembering is there's genuinely a very good person inside all of that. There's a respectable member of his community who loves his country, loves his communities, wants the best for them, is very generous, good father. Like, think about being Donald Trump, being a real estate magnate and involved in all the other things that he's involved in, and not missing a single one of your daughter's plays or recitals. It would have been really easy to be like, oh yeah, I can't make this one, honey. I'll talk to you afterwards. Nope. He makes it to every single one of them. So now let's get into some actual debate content here. Oh, there's a duplicate tab. So where did I put all these videos? Oh, I got these are the replies to the videos. Here's the videos. Here we go. So like I said, I don't know what order these are all in. I'm just going to have to run through them as we go through them because I didn't have time to sort them all. But we'll talk and laugh and commentate. And then I've got some commentary from after the debate to share with you guys. Catholic Orthodoxy says he sounds like a typical king from way back in the day, literally like a prince. Yeah, like this is what royalty. This is the beneficent side of royalty, is going down and walking in amongst the people and being generous and paying for the less fortunate to get ahead and investing in them. This is the way that an aristocracy behaves. We haven't had one of those for a very long time, and it's no coincidence that the death of the aristocracy, of the true aristocracy, not the kleptocrats, but the true aristocracy, with the death of them, like it's like you cut off the head and the rest of the body begins to die and decay. And that's what we've been living in. We need more true aristocrats. And you could sit around and ask for other people to become aristocrats, which is fine. It's good to demand better of your elites. But you can also become an aristocrat yourself. So I hadn't watched this video in a long time. Someone retweeted this, or someone tweeted this yesterday before the debate. And remember how much, I want to play this so you guys can remember how much fun we had 8 or so years ago.
This is a tough business to run for president.
No, you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
real tough.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting
Jeb,
your way to the
let's
presidency.
see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
This doesn't do
Here's a guy.
I don't know if there's probably some younger people in the audience. I know our audience skews young, so there may be guys that maybe weren't as tapped in or following this as closely back then, didn't understand the context of all of this. But the overwhelming assumption, it's hard to remember life like this before the way that presidential elections and everything used to be. The overwhelming assumption leading up to this was that it was going to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. It was going to be the Bush versus Clinton, like the two dynasties battling it out and figuring out which of these two narrowly departed views of the world are going to reign for, because once Jeb is elected, well, then he's going to be reelected. Or if Clinton is elected, she's going to be reelected. And then it'll be another Bush Clinton after that. So at this point, 2015, people are expecting that the next at least like 20 years of American politics is already decided. And then Trump comes in And I happened to be watching this kind of early on because when I was in college, one of my roommates, we used to sit and watch Celebrity Apprentice. It was like our guilty pleasure kind of. We'd go out, we'd play softball and do our batting practice and see how fucking far we can crush a softball. And then we'd go pick up a Little Caesars pizza. We'd each get a Little Caesars pizza, a cheesy bread, and a 2-liter of soda. And we'd go back to his house and we'd sit down and we would watch Celebrity Apprentice. One of my favorite memories of my life. And we just got an absolute hoot out of Trump. He just thought he was hilarious. And he was like, man, I'll bet you this guy's going to run for president someday. And I was like, there's not a chance. Like, it's hard to remember what life was like when Trump was he was just like a reality TV guy that was kind of I don't know, he might have occupied a similar status as like Gordon Ramsay, kind of. If you talked about like Gordon Ramsay running for president, he'd be like, what? Or Gordon Ramsay like character, obviously Gordon Ramsay can't, but having Trump just come out of nowhere and just start throwing fucking haymakers. This was so disruptive. Nobody had ever seen anything like this. Politics has gotten vastly more contentious and this sort of thing, I find myself watching it and being kind of like, oh yeah, this is sort of like politics as usual. And then the more I watch this video, we'll keep it going here. The more I watch this video, I was like, this was so much of a departure from the established way of things. He was so disruptive. And looking back on it, you can see how well planned out this was. How serious and authentic he is with this stuff. It's not just a performance. Like, he knows he's very good with TV. He knows how to move a crowd like a stand-up comedian. But this is very, very intentional. There was malice behind this. There was contempt behind his deconstruction of Jeb Bush.
That buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have as president.
And he's had the gall to go
The
after
World
my
Trade
mother.
Center came
He's
down
had the
during
gall
your
to go
brother's
after
reign.
my
Remember
mother.
that.
Hold on.
Let me finish this. He's had the gall to go after my mother.
That's not keeping
Look, I
us
won
safe.
the lottery when I was born 63 years ago and looked up and I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
This
be
is
running.
not about my...
Take 30 seconds.
Let me just, he wants to be a tough guy. A lot of times, you'll have, and it doesn't work very well with
How
that.
tough is it
A
to
lot
take
of times,
property from
let
an
me
elderly
talk,
woman?
Let me talk. Quiet. A lot of times.
His dopey face. He's just like, Imagine being a man who has been bred for his entire life to run for president, assuming that you're going to run for president, that is going to be a shoo-in for you. The entire system, the whole world that you've known has always just licked your toenails. And a man who's taller and has vastly more personality than you out on the stage turns to you and says, quiet. Oh my God. Honestly, I've got to give it to Jeb for not literally melting into a puddle on the spot.
That's all of his donors and special interests out there. So, that's what it is.
Now this was a huge moment when he called it out for what it is. Like, I think you might even say, I'd love to see someone do a deep dive on this and make the case that this was like the defining point. This specific moment in time was the turning point in the collapse of the American Republic. This moment right here. When they're booing, and he's like, this is all of his donors and special interests. He's like, okay, guys, I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain. You hear this audience out here, you're like, oh, this is representative of the American people. No, this is all donors and special interest groups that are paid to be here to cultivate your reactions. And I'm just coming in here like a fucking wrecking ball, and I'm just going to destroy it. This was, I think, the moment where he really won over the American people.
That's what. And by the way, let me just tell you, we needed tickets. You can't get them. You know who has the tickets for the? I'm talking about to the television audience. Donors, special interests, the people that are putting up the money. So it is. The RNC told us we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me.
You can see on Jeb's face, he's like, oh, he's bombing. He's bombing. He's completely detached, completely out of touch. He's all smug. Yeah, that's right. They hate him. Everyone hates him. He's bombing. We're going to be done with him. Like somehow he thinks that 42-3 is just going to be like overturned because all of the paid donors and special interests are booing him. Like he genuinely lives in this bubble where he thinks this is real.
The reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that.
He thinks he's the Patriots. Yeah, right. Yeah. Jeb Bush, the Patriots of politics. Yeah, 28-3. He's our boomer, one of a kind. Indeed, he is, Duffhead. So, Rip here said this was hilarious, and I wish we saw some of this last night. And Josh Ham makes a good point. He says, no, you can't be mean to a senile old man. It's one thing to be rude to assholes. It's another to crush a pitiable, decrepit nursing home ward. And I think that's very true. This was a talking point that even the talking heads were touching on. They were like, wow, Trump was so much more disciplined and restrained. Like, oh, this is all of his handlers. His handlers told him to be this way. Trump and Biden are not the same person. Trump is not just doing whatever his handlers tell him to do. For Trump to decide, like you've seen Trump, you've seen when he feels a certain way, he's going to say it. If Trump genuinely wanted to go out and thought it would be good and productive to go out and crush Biden yesterday, actually go at him like he went after Jeb, he would have done it no matter what his handlers told him to do. But he has the political instincts to recognize, and I think genuinely he probably has the human spirit, the compassion to recognize that there's nothing like beneficent about going out and crushing this shell of a man who is clearly has no idea where he is or what he's doing. He's amped up on drugs, can barely function. He's just a puppet. And beating up the puppet makes you someone who beats up puppets, and nobody wants to be the guy who beats up puppets. You have to actually go at the powers behind the puppet. And he recognizes that all I have to do is not be like an active turnoff to the average person, and just look decent and calm and measured and presidential, and I'll win by default. So the best part, let's see, I don't want to play that one just yet. I'll give you guys. So some of you said you haven't actually watched it yet. This is how bad it got.
Able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
We finally beat Medicare. Trump's face, yeah, and like you can kind of see in Trump's face when he's looking at him. Like I might be reading too much into this, but most of the night when I was watching it, I didn't see like the kind of contempt and hostility in Trump that he had when he was going up against Bush. Often it was more just kind of like, man, this is pathetic. Because it was pathetic. It was a real, I don't know, can I speak in these terms? It was an embarrassment as an American just watching this happen, like seeing this old man who I think is just evil and corrupt as the day is long. He's been a craven political hired gun for some of the worst things imaginable for his entire life. I think he's a creep. I think he's an evil man. But we're also seeing that in that evil man is also this decrepit, pitiful, weak, pathetic, bumbling old guy. This is what he's been reduced to. And being like directing your anger and hatred at what he used to be at him now is just misplaced. There's something that's just wrong about it. He's clearly just having his life artificially prolonged to be trotted out and to do all of this stuff. He's the absolute perfect face of the regime. If Peter Thiel was doing what we've hypothesized perhaps he was doing, which is ensuring the installation of Joe Biden so that American people could see, not just American people, but everyone could see the actual state of the regime in 2020, as Curtis Yarvin was advocating for. I thought it was insane at the time. But now we've seen very, very clearly what the regime is actually like. It's been very much revealed. Buck Johnson says, and realize Biden is 7 years younger than Ron Paul. 7 years younger than Ron Paul. And if you listen to Ron Paul, he sounds completely clear. Biden, I think, is younger here than Ray Peat was. Ray Peat had like a weird kind of speech impediment, but he was exceptionally clear-headed. Biden's not clear-headed or anything. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he's already dead and he's just a meat suit that's being functioned animatronically. Of course, if that was the case, he'd probably actually be kind of competent. This was after, so we'll play that one in a minute. This was one of the this is where things were really going off the rails. Biden is just saying stuff.
Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
So just like that other clip, he's bumbling and the moderator jumps in to bail him out. Now, I think what he was trying to do here, they were talking about talking about immigration. And I think what he was trying to do here was connect. He's like, okay, so immigrant man comes in and a illegal migrant comes in, murders or rapes some chick. And then also there's Roe v. Wade and abortion. So there's other people who are being raped, but they can't go get an abortion. I think these were the thoughts that he was trying to put together. And it's crazy. This is the man who was prepared for a week. I think they said there was like 16 current and former aides surrounded him for a week to prepare him for all this, give him all of his talking points. One of the libs, it might have been Simone Sanders or something like that. She said, it was Tom Nichols. Tom Nichols, that absolute wizard of smart, who said that Biden was over-prepared. The problem with him is he had too much information in his mind. His aides gave him too much help. He was over-prepared to answer all of Trump's lies. We're going to talk about that preparation here in just a minute. Let's get a couple more of these clips. I don't remember which one this is, so it might be a duplicate.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with.
Okay, yeah. So this is that other one where he just bumbled his way into nothing, and they bailed him out. Okay, that's that one. Did I not get this one clip? It was like the best clip of all. I know where I can find it real quick here, because Oren tweeted about it. He called it the kill shot. It's funny that it was like the biggest clip that everyone said was the like he said, it's the kill shot, and it's the one that I didn't have. Here we go. All right, share this tab. So Oren says this was the kill shot.
Move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we
move until we get to.
And that basically encapsulates the entire debate. This MF is actually retarded. Like, look at Trump's face there. This looks. I see like I don't know, understanding, compassion, empathy, maybe. Like, oh man, you're trying so hard, buddy. It's a shame what they've done to you. Slowboy says he sounds like he has the death rattle. Yeah. Okay, so then actually I haven't seen this clip yet. What does Jon Stewart say?
Because this cannot be real life. It just can't. We're America. God. Because this.
Oh, he's the worst. It's so fake. Okay. So, highlighted the entire debate. This was when everything just got real good. This was the best part. The two of them began arguing about golf. I want to see you know what Trump should propose a golf tournament. Hey, set the whole thing up and Biden just has to show up for it. And then just have Trump play golf.
That I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well,
I don't understand what the point is here. As you can see, he's 6'5". I think Trump's 6'3". He's 6'5", and he's 235 pounds.
Said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. By the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play.
If you've played golf, if you've got your golf buddies, you've talked golf, you understand what a 6 handicap is, and you can see the realness in Trump's response there. He's like, right, yeah, buddy, I'm sure you got a 6 handicap.
Golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
Let's not act like children.
President
Joe.
Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's
rounds.
not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific.
Let's not act like children. You are a child. Now, what stood out to me about this was, let me see if you guys get it. What do you notice about this clip? There's something interesting about what's happening in this clip that is a departure from the rest of the debate, let's say. I'll give you guys a minute to catch up here. Buck says he should have said your handicap is you, Joe. See, I think that's where he would have been. That's where he would have been feeding him red meat to just pounce on him as mean. Because what's going to happen with the majority of people, the vast majority of the just sort of the empty-headed people that are just viewing this and they don't understand all the goings on behind the scenes. They're just viewing this, thinking that they still live in 2012. They're going to feel sorry for Biden. This is the first impulse people are going to have. It's going to be sympathy and compassion. Put yourself in the mind of the average American person who sees Biden as just kind of a run-of-the-mill politician, doesn't recognize all of the evil and corruption behind him. They don't know the nature of the regime. They're going to, as they realize what's happening, their first impulse is going to be, this poor guy. This is elder abuse, because it is. So he would immediately shoot himself in the foot by crushing him too hard and really going after him. The one time that he really went after him for being incoherent was the one I played for you, the kill shot, where he's like, I don't know what he said, and I don't think he does either, honestly. And he executed that perfectly. He was actually like, man, I don't know what's going on with that dude, but here's what I'll tell you. And then he just has to be normal. He just has to be normal. The media are going to screech about lies and whatnot. I have a screenshot about that in just a minute about the lies. What stands out to me about this clip here is they're both talking. They're both unmuted. And they're talking in a back and forth, both unmuted. We were told that they were not both going to be unmuted. And I think this was the only time in the entire debate that it happened. I watched like the last 80% of it. I came in late, and then I watched like the first half of it, but I wasn't watching it as closely. But I'm pretty sure this was the only time in the entire debate where they were both unmuted, which we were told was not going to happen. And it just so happens to be like whoever the producer is running this, like they knew that they had the clip. They knew that they had the thing that was going to make them go viral beyond the virality of a presidential debate in the first place. I think they said just beforehand that instead of being on a 7-second delay, they were on like a 1 to 2 minute delay. So people said, oh, maybe they're going to be like editing clips out or whatever. And maybe they did edit stuff out because it would have made it even worse. But as it is, it was bad enough. So I'm assuming that they had the audio clips there and they were choosing when to run them. They have both audio channels. And they set this up specifically to capture something like this. They knew it was going to happen when it happened. They were ready for it, and it was great. Like this is where they cannot help but step on their own dicks. They have to get the big moment. They have to get the made-for-TV moment. They have to get the virality. And in so doing, they both have to be openly hypocritical. And they have to highlight the thing that makes Trump look funny and dignified and measured and makes Biden look bumbling and goofy and old. And it's just entertaining in general. Josh says it's the only time Trump even tried to talk over or directly respond. There was a couple other times where he responded and you could hear him faintly, but his mic was not activated. And this one, I'll play it again here.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 2. Look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
Now that's actually a pretty good zinger. I'm sure this is one that he was set up for. He probably had it on his notes or something. This is actually a pretty good zinger. Except for the fact that, like, Biden wouldn't even be able to walk to the first tee. He would need his wife there, like, guiding him up to the first tee. But that's actually a pretty good zinger. I'll play golf with you if you'll carry your own bag. Because there's no way Trump's carrying his bag around.
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap.
Okay, so now Trump is getting his response. So you saw he was muted, or his mic wasn't on. Now his mic is on, and he's responding. So his mic should be off.
Of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
It hasn't been turned off.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
They're still going.
Let's not act like children.
President
Joe.
Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific.
So at no point in there did either one of them get muted after both of them started talking. They could have done that, but they intentionally let it run because they knew they had good stuff. Okay. This was... Okay, that's that same clip. And I believe I already played this one for you guys. Yeah, Biden talking about women being raped by their sisters. Now this... Okay, so the last video clips I have here are... Yeah, Barstool Sports. You and your boy, both 25 handicaps, arguing about your golf game at the bar. And Dan Scavino Jr., this is after the debate. There was a clip. I didn't pull it out for you because it's whoop-de-doo. Hey, man, Duffhead, you are ahead of things. Are you watching my screen? Are you somehow behind me watching me right now? Duffhead's been getting into the remote viewing stuff, I think. So after the debate, there was a camera angle from up above, like in the rafters, and you can see Joe can barely walk. He's just sort of like shuffling away from the podium, and which is interesting because he walked in fine, but then at the end of it, it's like he's so exhausted now that he's just barely shuffling. And his wife comes over, the real President Biden, fake Dr. Jill. She comes over and she's like got him by the elbow and helping him step down on the steps, and he's just shuffling. And they walk over for a little rally. Now, it's interesting because I was flipping back and forth between CNN, ABC, NBC, and MSNBC. I was just kind of cycling between them. And the commentary, we'll talk about the commentary here in just a minute, but the commentary was absolutely ruthless, absolutely brutal to Biden. And they would be like, oh yeah, well, Trump, and he lies, and he just made stuff up, and he lied, and he had lots of mistruths, and he said lots of things that weren't true, and he lied, and he had mistruths, and he said things that weren't true. It was just like they were throwing these in as like parentheticals, but the focus was on how bad Biden was. And then Biden, they have this, they cut in with this video to this little like post-debate rally with Biden and with both Bidens. There's no post-debate rally or that I saw. There was no go and get an additional footage of Trump talking to his people or whatever. Trump just takes off. And we get this absolutely legendary clip that is going to live on in infamy.
No, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the...
Good job, Joe. You answered every question. Imagine who the person is in her mind who she's speaking to when she does this. Not, I mean, him. I mean, she's performing for an audience. And she has an idea in her mind of what that audience is and how that audience is going to like positively consume what she's saying. She's talking performatively to him as if he's in kindergarten, and she thinks she has an audience of people who think like that, of people who are in kindergarten.
And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
One more time.
Crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
That's the image right there. I've already seen this a little bit from Trump's proxies, highlighting this image right here. And if they're smart, this is the angle that they're going to take. Now, we need to talk about the response. Because there's all sorts of opinions about the response. The fact that this debate was set up. It was set up and rigged for Biden. So there's people who are debating about what the actual story is here. Was this Biden's team challenging Trump to a debate that they think he's not going to accept given the terms that they've put up? And here, I'll put the screen cap back up there again so you guys can see this. And then Trump accepts it because he's like, well, if you don't want me to accept, then I'm going to accept. Yeah, Melaforte, this happened like right after. This was maybe 10 minutes after the debate. So was that what happened? And then the press actually thought, we can pull this out. He just has to look semi-competent. They've got all their statistics all ready to go about how incumbent presidents always underperform in their first debates, and we just need him to be just remotely competent. He's managed that in the past. He's been competent. He just has to not completely crash and burn. And then we've crossed this threshold. There, we actually did a debate. We got him through it. Everything's all hunky dory. And then he crashes and burns. And all these talking heads are sitting here talking about the texts and stuff that they're getting from Democrat operatives and party officials and elected officials and CEOs, and who are all panicking. The phrase aggressive panic was used. I might have one of the clips here. I'll see in a minute. Was that the story? Or was this an intentional setup? Is this the machine intentionally? They want to replace Biden with someone else. And so they're setting up for that replace. This was a carefully crafted Machiavellian plan to give Biden a rake to step on publicly so they can get the justification to get him out of the way. Which one was it? I happen to think it was both. I think both are true. We've talked about this coalition that's fracturing, and there's certain parts of the coalition that are fully behind Biden. They're completely pot committed. The only thing they can do is get Biden reelected because their own personal power depends on it. And they know because they live in this world. They still live in the world of winning elections and trying to win over the people and trying to present the right story and get people to buy into our narrative so we can continue with business as usual. They know if Biden doesn't debate, it's going to be very, very hard for him to be elected. He's going to have to debate. So we need to bite the bullet and make this happen and get through it as best as we can. Then there's other members of the coalition who would be like, yeah, here we go. Here's our opportunity. We want to replace Biden. We would love to replace Biden, but it's a very difficult thing to do. It's going to be they've backed themselves into a corner where replacing Biden with someone better without introducing a whole bunch of other fires that they have to put out is going to be very, very difficult. I've got some clips and some other commentary from some other people to this end. Before that, just a couple other points along the way. This was 8:30, so this is 30 minutes into the debate. Zero Hedge said, for anyone just joining, so this is the predict it markets. Who will win the 2024 U.S. presidential election? Live data updated every minute. So up until the debate, it was hovering right in this range of the markets are predicting Biden around 47, Trump around 53. Somewhere in that vicinity, just kind of moving back and forth a point at a time. And then 30 minutes into the debate, pew! Trump is up to 64. Biden's down to, what is this here? 63 and 26. So if you'll notice, these numbers don't add up. This isn't close to 100. So, or it says 63 and 37 here, which is close. Biden's gap is minus 26. The third party, I don't remember the statistics that I saw, but the third party numbers jumped as well. A lot of people just bailed on both of them. And I think it was CNN. It might have been multiple networks. They were saying, they called them the double haters. Here's millennial mind infecting the news. The double haters, the people who hate both candidates. Now, there was a couple of points that they argued about. Biden referred to the story where Trump supposedly called veterans suckers and losers. And they went back and forth on that. Trump was like, I absolutely did not do that. I have 19 people who affirmed that I didn't do that. And interestingly, Trump, again, in a very personable way, he was like, do you even think this is conceivable? Like, do you really think that me as the president of the United States would go and say, like, go to like all these military people. I don't remember what event it was. It was Memorial Day or something like that. I'm going to go at this event dedicated to veterans who have died, and I'm going to go call them suckers and losers. Like, are you kidding? And Biden was like, no, there was one general. And Trump was like, yeah, I fired him. And Biden's like, see, he fired the guy who criticized him. But interestingly, this was at 9:21. So this is right around the end of the debate. This guy tweets, these are the most popular Google searches for over the last hour. Just saying. Did Trump say losers and suckers? Trump suckers losers. Did Trump call veterans losers? Losers and suckers Trump. Trump fined people on both sides, because that talking point came up as well. And of course, Fake Tapper, as Trump has named him, Fake Tapper, who himself is on the record saying that the Trump said very fine people on both sides, that whole narrative associated with him supposedly calling white nationalists very fine people. Tapper is on the record himself saying this is false. He very clearly didn't say this. This is an example of why people don't trust the media. We need to stop perpetuating this. Of course, Mr. Fake Tapper there doesn't fact check him in real time. But this is very interesting. People are not just consuming whatever the media is telling them to consume. They're actually going and looking it up themselves. They're going to have a hard time getting to the same, actually getting to any sort of truth on any of this, of course, going through Google, but they're trying at least. So, okay, got that story. And stop sharing this story. Let me just do a double check, make sure I don't have anything else. All right. So a few different, what I think are very poignant responses. Now this one, actually, I'll do this one first because this wasn't actually a response to the debate. This was from before the debate. But I think that it actually applies here very well as people are trying to figure out if this is all 4D chess or if this is just genuine incompetence. And as I said, I think it's both. You can't think of the regime as a single operating entity. It's a whole network of different incentives. No idea how you pronounce this. I'm going to say Eugipius. Good follow on Twitter. Says a recurring theme with managerial bureaucracy is how, when you drill down to the actual functioning of the system in its finest details, it is both malevolent and blindly stupid at the same time. It is this weird machine that's trying to fuck you while also all of its human elements are merely responding to various imponderable immediate incentives and have no real idea of what they're doing or why. They have some consciousness of guilt. At the start of the COVID craze, German bureaucrats furtively collaborated with literal fucking Chinese foreign agents to establish lockdowns in Germany, and they tried to cover it up too. But the crazy thing is, it wasn't for anything. None of them personally profited. It was a fun project, an opportunity to stick their fingers in your everyday life, and they took it. Fuck you straight from the overweight school marms and the public health bureaucracy. See, they don't need to have some direct profitable incentive to them personally. As Tucker Carlson said, it's a conspiracy of interest. A certain class of people will make a certain type of decision and operate in a certain type of way, and it will appear to be a conspiracy, even though it's just people operating according to their programming. It's saying it's just a conspiracy that's all just 4D chess from a single ruling cabal that's disseminating everything to all their operatives. There's elements of that, but reducing it to that is like a cop-out, because you don't want to confront the far more challenging reality, which is that these people aren't even doing this intentionally malevolently. They've been conditioned to believe and operate and act this way. This is a far more complex issue than just saying, oh, it's this one group. Just reduce it to this one group and then problem solved. Then you can just kick that one group out. You're trying to use the scapegoat mechanism that's been broken. Scapegoating doesn't work anymore. By trying to reduce it to a single scapegoat and thinking we could just kick them out and solve all the problems, you're embodying the spirit of the regime itself and perpetuating it. You're allowing its spirit to operate you. The more I study the migration phenomenon, the more it looks the same. A lot of femoid, underchilded NGO loons and bureaucrat types collaborating to flood Europe with browns and trying desperately to hide their malfeasance. Maybe a few million euros are flowing here or there, but in the context of government budgets, it's pennies. And very few of these idiots profit personally. There's a great urge to change society, to make a mark. It's the same impulse that drives youths to tag buildings with graffiti. Liberals love their social engineering games, and often I fear that it is not deeper than that. And hit that retweet. They want to matter. They've been told doing this thing makes you matter. You get to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Email user says, they do expect to profit, though. The way you profit in the bureaucracy, i.e. further your career, is to be put in charge of something. From there, you move on to the next thing you're in charge of, a bigger thing. Eugipia says, yes, I think this is very important. We think too much in terms of naked money. We should think much more in terms of careers. They're much more decisive. So people are following their profit incentive, but reducing it simply to money is not getting at the heart of what's actually happening. There are, of course, malevolent actors who are explicitly doing this for subversive means. But there's a very, very, very small number of people who fully comprehend exactly the magnitude and the specifics of what they're doing, that actually see this in terms of, basically a lot of the right-wing dissident commentariat will take their understanding of the world, they'll project that understanding into who they see as their enemies and say, you guys have the exact same understanding I do, and you're operating with the exact opposite incentives as me. And that's not appropriate. That's applicable to an exceptional few number of people. The vast, overwhelming majority of people, I'd say, like, when I say majority, I'm saying like 99.9% of people don't see the world the way you do. They literally live in a completely different world. Like Scott Adams, the same two movies being played on the same screen. And which movie you see depends on which biases you're bringing to the table. They don't share your biases, so they're not watching the same movie as you are. So they're not motivated by the opposite of whatever your concerns are. They're motivated by their own concerns. And generally, they are genuinely stupid people who are detached from reality. This makes them weak and vulnerable, which they spiritually can sense. They can intuit their own weakness and vulnerability because of the incoherence of their operating principles. That's what they're lashing out against. So you don't need to attack them. You don't need to annihilate them. You just need to let them take themselves out and be prepared with something to replace them. And I'm not saying in one fell swoop. I'm saying as they start bumbling and stepping on their dicks, then you just step in and take over what they're doing, take over their initiative. And there's a tremendous amount of power flowing through the Supreme Court and the financial institutions and the desire to reshore American manufacturing. There's a tremendous amount of elite support for people to come in and take these things over and do them competently. And if the people who are going to do them competently are the people who are going to advocate for our interests, effectively, nationalization, reshoring, building up our own families, building up our own communities, if they're going to support that, if you're doing things competently, then go do these things competently and get their attention. Another point of commentary. This is from Naval Ravikant, who I've listened to for a very long time. He's a very insightful guy. And he had some takes on it last night. He tweeted, so, who's been in charge all along? This is the thing that this is probably the big red pill that's happening today. There's a disturbance in the force that's happening as millions of Americans are confronting for the very first time that Joe Biden is not the president. Their brains are breaking otherwise. The people whose brains aren't breaking are the ones who are confronting this reality. Joe Biden is not the president and has not been the president. But this leaves them a dilemma.
Well, it's obviously a disaster for the Democrats. They've got 40 days to find a replacement for him, which is going to be really difficult. 40-day limit is because of the Ohio ballot rules. To get on the ballot, I think you have till August 4th, I think. In any case, because of Biden being the incumbent, they have to convince him to step down, which I don't think actually will be that hard. But then they have the harder job of...
I disagree with him there. Because Biden is not the one who's having to be convinced. At least Joe Biden is not the one who's having to be convinced. Jill Biden and her little team of apparatchiks, not that they are her team that she put together, but the affiliated group of people who are operating through her as his handler, they're the ones who would have to step down in this sort of an event. If they're opening up the coalition to other interests, which is what bringing on a new candidate would mean. It's bringing on new backers, new financial interests, new political interests, new agendas. If they open that up, it's going to disempower them.
Convincing Harris to step down.
This is an important part here, is that taking out Biden means it leaves you with either President Kamala or presidential nominee Kamala, which is much worse, or somehow we have to figure out how to get the extremely unpopular retarded woman out of the VP slot while still catering to the people who desperately want to see a woman of color. Even if you want to bring in Big Mike and pander to that group, you're going to have to provide some justification for taking Kamala out of there. Those justifications can be conceived of, but this is very thorny territory.
Biden being the incumbent, they have to convince him to step down, which I don't think actually will be that hard. But then they have the harder job of convincing Harris to step down alongside him, because if she doesn't voluntarily step aside, she's going to get beaten up by Trump. She loses very badly to him in the polls. And then they have to replace the entire Biden-Harris ticket with probably, I would guess, Whitmer and somebody else. This is where it gets really tricky. Maybe Hillary makes a comeback. I don't think they can quite run Newsom. He's not ready, and California's record is terrible, and he would lose all the swing states. So I think the Democrats are in a very difficult position, and that's all I got right now. And my question about who's been in charge all along, it's been semi-obvious that it hasn't been Joe. So I think it's just a good moment to reflect upon how the bureaucracy in this country, and frankly in the entire West, is highly entrenched and is on autopilot. Imagine if you were an investor in a company or a board member and you walk into your board meeting and you realize the CEO hasn't shown up to work for 2 years and really just the VPs have been running amok and doing whatever they wanted. You'd know at that point that anything run by committee is incredibly inefficient and wasteful and almost kleptocratic. So you would expect the company to have essentially been looted the entire time.
Now, the perspective that he's bringing there is not one that's necessarily going to be shared by your average American voter, but the average American voter is going to largely do what they're told. What he's describing is the next tiers up, the people who can begin to actually throw influence around. And whatever the Democratic Party coalition wants to try to put together, they're going to have to appeal to all these different interests. But as, what was this here? Josh Ham says, it takes time to manufacture consent without it looking very fortified. And they've put themselves in a position where they've got to try to manufacture that consent very quickly. And it's not just like appeal to all the Democratic voters, all the existing Democratic voters. It's got to appeal to the independent voters, the swing state voters. They've got to try to pander to them, which means they have to find someone who's appealing to them. Someone like Newsom is never going to do that. Someone like Whitmer may perhaps appeal to some of them, but how do you pull someone like that in? How do you lay the groundwork for all of that? How do you accomplish all that in a really short period of time while pacifying all these other interests? And also at the same time, you're under a microscope from both global and domestic interests that want to believe in this whole system, want to believe it's competent. They've been keeping their heads buried in the ground, trying to pretend that everything's okay, but it's becoming impossible to actually do that. And it's beginning to actually have like global geopolitical consequences to them personally. They don't want to see government by committee. They're seeing what happens with government by committee. So if you just replace the puppet with another transparently obvious puppet who's being shoehorned in at the last second because we were too competent to realize it beforehand, then that's not breeding any confidence. Why am I going to trust that you're going to govern my interests for me? You can't be too cynical about all these people because you just won't see accurately the way that they see the world and the way that they're making decisions. And the decisions that they make are really influential. So we've seen the groundwork. We've been documenting it here for several months now of all the institutions all beginning to make peace with the idea of Trump and all moving their support behind Trump. And somehow we're getting both of these narratives at the same time from the people who ostensibly understand how everything works. They're both saying, oh yeah, Trump is completely compromised, and if he's elected, it'll be exactly the same as Biden. But also at the same time, they have to shift something. Or no, they could just put Biden back in place, and they could just install him, and everything will run as normal. Like these two things can't exist simultaneously. You have like a grade schooler's understanding of you have like the original constitutional structure, and then you've got like the grade schooler's understanding of the constitutional structure. Then you've got the adapted managerial bureaucracy current state of the structure, and there's this grade schooler's understanding of that, which is like, oh, it's just a figurehead, and they could just plop him out and put someone else in, and everything's will just run as normal. Clearly, this isn't the case. All you have to do is like meet some people and talk to them and realize that the way that you imagine people to function is not the way they actually function in real life. Another interesting take here from Jeremy Carl. He says, there's a take on this debate I've heard from a lot of folks on the right that is tempting and understandable, but completely wrong. One that says that the Democrats knew Biden would bomb this badly and scheduled the debate early so they can move him out of the way. Nonsense. Most of the people closest to Biden who would have been making these decisions are Dem apparatchiks, but more specifically, they are Biden apparatchiks. They wouldn't enjoy anywhere near the same power and access with his successor. This is what I'm saying. For better or worse, their fates are tied to Biden specifically. They had the debate early because they knew that while Biden was not in great shape, they had drunk the Kool-Aid and convinced themselves, at least to some degree, of the lies they've been telling for years to the American people about his mental state. They thought that if they worked with the most favorable rules on the most favorable network with the most favorable moderators and gave Biden a full week to prep. Quick sidebar here. I didn't pull up this clip, but one of the chicks on, I think, CNN yesterday, she actually said, and when she was talking about Biden's preparation, she openly said he had all of the questions ahead of time and knew the questions that he was going to be asked. So these people who supposedly are setting up this whole performance are also investing a tremendous amount of time and effort and money and energy, like to take the president out to Camp David and everything that goes along with that, and pulling in all of these advisors and spending a week drilling him relentlessly on all these sorts of things. That's a lot of time and effort and energy from a lot of people who are doing a lot of things and involved in a lot of things. You don't do all of this just for a performance. So they thought that if they could work with the most favorable rules on the most favorable network with the most favorable moderators, and it gave Biden a full week to prep, they would be able to get through it. And even if they didn't win, it would be far enough from the election that voters would ignore a mediocre performance. They were not counting on what a disaster it would be to have Biden fully unmasked 1-to-1 versus a competent and energetic opponent. Yes, Biden's performance was such a disaster that it's tempting to think this was all planned, but that's only if you ignore the levels of self-deception, lying, and magical thinking that have dominated the Democratic Party for years now. That's what was exposed on the debate stage last night.
Total ban on the total.
We already listened to this clip. Now, where I might slightly differ with him is I would say that there are influences that would have been prepared for this. The ones who don't want, like the actual Democrat Party loyalists who want they have TDS, they don't want Trump. They're the ones who want the Democrat machine to keep running. But they also have lost confidence in Joe. They recognize all the issues with him, and they want someone else in there. This has very clearly been a big narrative among all their talking heads for months now. So they would have been prepared for a moment like this, and they're going to capitalize on it when it comes. These are different sections. These are different factions of the different groups that are jockeying for power among the elite structure. Again, it's not a single organization of people. It's a network, a coalition of different interests. So they were ready when this sort of thing happened to respond to it this way. This doesn't mean that the Biden campaign is doing this intentionally. Maybe they get baited into it. And ultimately, it's fantastic for ratings, and it allows them to try to get out ahead of this. Rather than letting it bite them in the ass at the last minute, they're able to try to get out ahead of it and try to pull something out of it. James Kirkpatrick from VDare says, I've never seen journos turn on a Democratic candidate like this in my life. It's so monolithic it makes me suspicious, but the simplest explanation is probably best. They made it impossible to question Biden's capabilities and then decided to put him on display. Oops. Yes. They are incompetent. They cannot both be incompetent and super Machiavellian at the same time. They genuinely are this incompetent, and this is the crisis. The crisis is that the bureaucracy has been on autopilot, as Naval said. There's no one actually running the show. And trying to pacify and satisfy all these different interests together is creating a catastrophe of epic magnitude that has all the appearances of direct malevolence, because there are ultimately malevolent spirits behind all of it who hate humanity and want to destroy humanity, want to bait humanity into pursuing what they think is right off a cliff. But that's the real crisis. The real crisis is that if a crisis shows up, we have no way of managing it. There are no adults in the room. This guy says, I think they're true believers. Right up to the debate, we had assholes like Chris Hayes and the Gorgons in The View telling everyone how smart and sharp he is. Only a true believer could suspend disbelief and say that, knowing that a debate was coming up. Right. The headlines are we'll just do this just for the fun of it. Let's say Biden debate. We're just going to Google Biden debate and see what we get. Politico, there's no spinning the debate result. Trump hit the jackpot. Top Democratic fundraisers sound the alarm after Biden's debate performance. Biden's disastrous debate pitches his re-election bid into crisis. Let's see. Biden tries to quell concerns after an unsteady debate. Democrats scramble after Biden's wobbly debate. We've been saying for a long time that the institutional power is behind Trump. Trump is, I don't see how you could see this in any other way except that Trump is going to be elected. There would be no reason for all of this chicanery and foolishness, if the result was already sewn up, if the fortification was already in place. We're in completely uncharted territory now. But the interests who really matter, whose own futures and wealth depend upon the gravy train continuing to run, are coming to grips with the fact that this is the way forward. Trump is now the establishment pick, and we're watching how that happens. That doesn't mean that every single person in power or influence or or who would be a potential decision maker is on board with that. But they're being forced to come on board with it, or they're going to hang themselves. And I'll bet you many of them will hang themselves. Vorpal Anvil says the talking heads last night saying it's Jover were unreal. Never seen anything like it despite having been a news consumer for decades now. Mr. Westford, I need to know who the man is in this situation so I can civically resist them. Resist! CB says the beast is cornered, afraid and bloodied. It's at its most dangerous point like a hurt dog. Possible they make a deal with RFK and merge campaigns. It is interesting. This I saw RFK interviewed on MDC. I don't remember where it was last night, and I was just struck again with like, yeah, it sucks that his voice has that issue, but it's really hard to get past just listening to him talk. And he gives me the willies. I've heard enough people who know him personally, who vouch for him as like a genuinely good, sincere human being. But there's something about his facial expressions and his posture that is just constantly anguished, and it doesn't project like strength and confidence. But he made the point that when they're polled, I haven't seen the numbers for this. I'm just passing on what I heard. But when they polled, if they poll him versus Trump, he wins. If they poll him versus Biden, he wins. So he put out a challenge to Biden. I think this was a while back, and he reiterated it yesterday that set a date at some point in the future and have a competition, like a showdown, where if the polling numbers at that time state taking Biden versus Trump and RFK versus Trump, if RFK does better, then Biden needs to step down. That's very interesting. I do think of all the possible candidates, of all the possible people that could be installed, Whitmer, Newsom, Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, all these different guys, the one who I think would be the most interesting would be RFK. If there was a deal made to put RFK at the top of the ticket, that would be very interesting. I still think Trump would win, but for the regime to be backed into a corner like that would be because RFK is, as much of a shitlib as he is, he's very clearly a regime outsider. The regime sees him as an outsider, and he sees himself as an outsider. He's not an insider. But having an RFK versus Trump election would be a significant concession on a lot of really interesting fundamental points from within the regime. I think Big Mike is just a non-starter. I think a lot of people want to make that happen, but that's not. I don't see that. I could see them trying it, but I don't think it would be successful. All right, coming up on 2 hours. Let me get into the last couple points here. So this was kind of a big story yesterday until it got drowned out by the U.S. men's national team losing to Panama and Greg Berhalter's head being called for. So there was some good memes yesterday about Berhalter being such a master planner that he planned to have this loss to Panama happen right before the debate and Biden tanking so that it would take all the pressure off of him. Niche jokes for those of you sports ball enjoyers. So this is a big story yesterday. Robbie Starbuck tweets, massive victory to report. I've exposed the woke agenda Tractor Supply's corporate office for 3 weeks. Now they've responded. Here's their statement. They will no longer sponsor pride festivals. They are eliminating all DEI roles and they're retiring their DEI goals. They will no longer submit data to the Human Rights Campaign for a corporate equality index score. They will withdraw from carbon emission goals. They promise to continue to listen to their customers and team members, refocus our team member engagement groups on mentoring, networking, and supporting the business. Bunch of nonsense corporate speak. This monumental change is thanks to all of you who supported my work exposing this, to the whistleblowers in Tractor Supply, and my fellow farm owners who respectfully spoke up. I'm working to get more information about these changes, but this is a fantastic moment for the fight to banish wokeness, DEI, and ESG from the workplace. This is one of many dominoes to fall to bring back an economy where the customer is king once again and woke politics are eliminated from the workplace. Looking forward to your reactions in the comments. So, there's 3 guys that I kind of put in the same category in my mind. You could almost say 4. It would be Robbie Starbuck, Chris Rufo, I just forgot his last name. Project Veritas. He's no longer part of Project Veritas. James O'Keefe. And then Scott Pressler, who's like a ground game guy. He goes in and like cleans up cities and does door-to-door work and everything. And I happen to know he's working now with the RNC, which is good because he actually genuinely has a good ground game. This sort of thing is really important. It's really valuable. Like, this isn't the whole fight. This isn't the whole battle. But having our guys working on these sorts of things is great. Going in, you weaponizing the autism and going in and forcing these Globocorps to bend the knee. Force them to adapt around us. No single one thing is a win, but as you can stack these. And we could begin making space for ourselves. I've got another interesting story for you guys, a thread from a Twitter account called DEI for White Guys. I think it's a pretty clever little bit they've got. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. But Charles Haywood had, I think, a very apropos thought on this. He says, I don't believe, contra academic agent, that the woke is being put away as he defines it or in any other way. The left wheel of fate must always turn leftward until stopped cold. But actions like this show that after the stoppage, rebuilding will be easier than we fear. Which brings us back to the point of the vast majority of people just being ordinary, decent people who are very easily moved and who just naturally fall into line behind whatever is whatever they're told to, whatever's made popular, whatever seems like the normal, decent, mainstream, centrist idea. They will just naturally fall behind it. So for the past however long you want to, wherever you want to delineate it, it's been fashionable to, by the sheer aggression of the activism from the radical left, it's been fashionable to support wokeness, DEI, all these sorts of things. And there's malevolent corporate agendas behind this. The ESG thing is a way for the oil and gas interests to block out their competitors, get a little regulatory capture, consolidate their operations. And they appeal to the moronic environmentalists and wet behind the ears kids out of college, freshly brainwashed and ready to go to work for them, who will work for free because they think they're doing something that matters. And they form these little coalitions to push these things in subversively. And the way that they get these things in is by co-opting the federal bureaucracies and using them to enforce them, because Congress isn't standing in their way. They don't even have to go through the whole legislative process. You just ensure that you get your guy as the head of the bureaucracy, and then he just defers to your experts. And the NGOs run the show. So now they're getting hit from the political side, and they're getting hit from the social side. It's forming like a pincer motion, squeezing them out and forcing them to adapt. It's a white pill, ladies and gentlemen. You must accept it. There's no black pilling allowed. It's already been declared. And as the winds of change begin to blow, the vast majority of people will just fall in line behind them. You don't have to go to war with everyone. You don't have to fight every single battle on every single front. You just have to fight the battles that matter. You have to win them. And as the pendulum begins to swing, everyone else will just come along with it. Many, many bad things can be canceled out relatively easily with the right surgical operations. Let me catch up on some of your comments here, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. And I realized I said I'd talk about it tomorrow. It'll have to be on Monday because it's Friday. We do not have ASTROLABE on the weekends. If you're enjoying the show, do me a favor. If you're watching on Twitter, hit retweet on it. Give me a comment. Help boost it in the algorithm. Follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. If you're watching on YouTube, like the stream. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. We do the ASTROLABE every morning, Monday to Friday. Looks like it's 10:30 Central is the new start time. But I'm here to bring you commentary, entertainment, highlight good threads by our guys on Twitter, interesting videos on YouTube. I've got a whole list of them that people have been sending me now. I appreciate you guys. My DMs are full. I'm getting messages and stuff sent to me all the time with different stories. It makes the job a little bit easier accumulating everything, and it tells me what you guys care about. because I want to bring you stuff that you may not be able to keep up with yourself, but I can. So I'll bring it to you and let you know what I think, and then you can do with it as you will. But I've got a whole list of videos now that I'm going to have to spend the weekend going through and watching and pulling out whatever thoughts I can from them. And I've got the mother-in-law here now, which is great. It's nice. I know my fellow parents out there who have many children, they'll scoff at the family that has the one child and is like, oh, such a handful. But we're doing a lot of stuff, and the one kid, he is a handful. So having Gaga here to babysit is wonderful. And it's great to see her. Josh Ham says it's much easier to go from 0 to 1 than it is to go from -1 to 0. Indeed. And all you have to do is go from 0 to 1. You don't have to go from 0 to infinity. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 or even 0 to 10. Just go from 0 to 1. And then you start creating mimetic trends that will become self-perpetuating. Josh says it's not that #our guys are necessarily winning, but it's definitely true that the woke is currently reeling and retreating. This is good. It makes future victories easier to achieve. I do think there's still a latent, even among the radical right-wingers, the guys who really understand the machinations of power. They're fully hip to all the agendas. Even among them, there's still this latent, like, traditional conservative impulse that we just need to engineer the exact right solution. So we need to take out everything in one big fell swoop. And if we just write the perfect constitution, then we can establish it. We can automate all the governance processes, and then we can go about doing our own things, knowing that everything is being run for us. And that's never the case. It's never going to be the case. This isn't a matter of just engineering the perfect system of government. Maintaining a civilization, managing a democracy, is a full-time job. 24/7, 365. We have a civic responsibility to participate in that and to incentivize that and to promote leaders who will participate in that. There are many beautiful things about democracy. The relationship between a king and his people is a wonderful thing. I think the most ideal form of government, if there was one, would be something like a monarchical democracy, where the king rules at the will of his people. So he becomes the embodiment of the people's will. The democracy is summed up in him, and the buck stops with him, and he's the one who manages it. The problem is, we have something sort of similar to that right now. People think that's how it is, but it's not been formalized. So there's all these sorts of little avenues for corruption and perversion and degeneracy. And those little avenues will exist in every single system. So you can't put the democratic toothpaste back in the tube. The democracy virus has been loosed, and it can't be eradicated. It has to be managed, which places a significant burden of civic responsibility on the shoulders of every man. Every man needs to be civically active, which means he needs to be dedicated to civilizational building activities and falling in line behind the appropriate leaders, and if necessary, becoming the appropriate leaders themselves. This is the king pill. Kate J says that's the most concessions we've gotten from any company since the Great Awakening went into overdrive after Biden was inaugurated. Yes, it is. I care about you too, Cooper. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys showing up. 76 viewers. I hadn't even paid attention to the view count. Of course, we're talking about the debate. There's lots of demand for this content today, so this will probably be one of the better performing astrolabes in a while. We've got 45 likes. Do me a favor, folks. If you haven't hit the like button, do so. It's our little currency that keeps us going. We'll see if this channel gets if this episode gets demonetized. I don't know if I've touched on enough provocative things, but the last one didn't. Last episode yesterday is still fully monetized. So the very last thing I'll say, I haven't seen the hype man in here today. He must be busy working. Taylor Brown is the hype man for the King Pill Discord. If you'd like to join the King Pill Discord, go to kingpill.com. We're going to be doing a schizo stream tonight. Should be about somewhere between 7 and 9 p.m. Central Time, depending on when everybody's available. I've got some interesting videos to put up as possible options. You guys let me know what you want to watch. I'll be posting about that in the King Pill Discord as soon as I get off the stream here and go take a leak because my bladder is exploding. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up. Go join the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com. any subscription tier will get you access to the Schizo stream tonight. And I will be back again Monday morning, bright and early, 10:30 a.m. Central, to talk about more fun things, watch some fun videos, discuss some thought-provoking threads from the great minds of our guys. Until then, have a great weekend.